Coming up on Kismet.
It felt like I was having to pick a side. I think the easier side was with my dad. Losing our relationship, like with you and I, because we were so close, that definitely, I guess, took a part of me that I didn't think I would ever lose.
Welcome to the Kismet podcast, where we explore your world of post-divorce reinvention, connection, and your pursuit of passion. Join us as we navigate love's second act.
Wow.
Welcome back to the Kismet podcast. I'm Kiz. We delve into an increasingly common phenomenon in society, grey divorce or separation after a long-term relationship. The old assumption that couples who've been together for a long time will always stay together no longer holds true. The impact of a relationship breakdown is seismic, not just for the couple involved, but for everyone in their lives. Their children, extended families, colleagues, friends, and even acquaintances. Today, I'm going to be talking to my very special guest, my son, John. Hi, John.
Hi, thank you for having me on.
Welcome. Thanks for joining us. And I'd like to start by asking you, in this topic that we're talking about in this podcast, about your memories of our family growing up and how things changed for you when our family went through the significant change that it did.
Yeah, for sure. Well, first I just want to say thank you even just for having me on. So growing up, I had one sibling and my lovely, beautiful mother here and my dad. And growing up, I think we were almost like, we were just inseparable. Like it felt like we were more friends than family, but in the sense that we still had that kind of camaraderie and like just that closeness and trustworthiness with each other. So for me growing up, it was just, I never felt like I was out of place in my family home. I was always safe. I was always loved. And that, I guess, also just reinforced my own confidence growing up and how I always felt like I had somewhere, if I was ever scared or if I ever wanted to ask questions, particularly towards you, Mum, I was always comfortable with that. I was never afraid. I was never worried about the reaction. Obviously, sometimes when certain things happen, you as
Busted.
A teenager, you're a bit like, holy crap, this is a bit unsure about what the approach for this would be. But I mean, you were always reassuring in the sense that like, you would just say, like, just be honest. Just be honest with me. And if you can be honest and authentic, maybe not using those words exactly, I remember honesty being key. But if I could always be honest and authentic, you know, the outcome is likely and most likely going to be the best.
Yeah, in spite of the fact there were usually consequences if you crossed a line.
I think that's also part of the growing up period, I think, which is like, I mean, any teenager I think can say, even I'm sure you could say as a growing up in Perth.
Yeah.
Always just something that you kind of learn as it comes and you face the consequences.
Yeah, car license withdrawn. Thank you very much.
Oh, yes.
And how did things change from that feeling of safety and all of the things you just mentioned where it was clear and open communication and a close family setting? How did that change and when did that change for you?
Yeah, I think probably when I was in year 12, so I would have been either 17 or 18, probably around those years. I remember in the house that we lived in, it was just, I had noticed that you and my dad were arguing a lot. There was a lot of conflict in the house. It felt like it turned from a place where I mentioned before, it was like I felt like I could just be myself. I was very comfortable. There was never any kind of animosity between any of us. It was always we were always on the same page. Like we would always be very aware of how we felt and what was going on. And if we didn't, we'd communicate with that. So it kind of changed. And I don't know if it was I can't remember off the top of my head if it was like very sudden or if it was just like a long-term kind of changing of event of like safety where it just felt very tense. Like in the house, I just remember feeling there was just a level of like almost insecurity between especially my sister and I, where we weren't really sure what was happening. We were a bit And we were also scared to ask because we just don't, and that's like is saying something as well, because from saying before, like how we felt so comfortable about asking you and Dad about, you know, if we had any questions, going from that to kind of being like, there's something going on, we're not sure what it is, we don't feel comfortable asking, and that just kind of kept on carrying on and getting bigger and bigger and bigger. It's like the elephant in the room. It just got larger and larger and larger. And so from year 12, I think that's kind of where things definitely started getting a bit more challenging.
In what way?
I essentially didn't know how to navigate. I didn't know what to do. And in that way, my behavior and I guess the relationship I had with you particularly, and my dad, and not as much as my sister, but it just started to really just feel awful. Like, it was just really awful. Like, I hated the feeling of like not knowing what was going to happen. And I also hated the feeling of not knowing how to kind of adapt and like how to progress from this. It was just felt like it was just like constantly banging my head against a wall. It was just really, I just didn't know what to do really.
Yeah, I think there was a lot of things that happened when you're in your final year of school. So, and it's interesting you picked up on the conflict, because as a parent, I would have thought that we kept that well concealed.
Sometimes, I guess behind closed doors, like the arguments were there, but it was just a bit challenging sometimes.
There was tension, and I remember trying to protect you but also explain to you so that you had some kind of understanding of what was going on. And is that something you remember? Yeah,
so in terms of I guess, so through the arguments you made it clear, you were very honest with Gabby and I, my sister, and so that helps. That definitely helped. But I think it was just the flip side to that was just my dad. It was just incredibly difficult to read. Like, I didn't know. It felt like I was having to pick a side. And the side that I felt like picking was like, you're my mum, he's my dad. I want to protect you both, but I know you both want to protect me. And so I just didn't know how to kind of I didn't know how to progress from that.
Yeah, wow. That's super insightful. I think, you know, probably like a lot of kids whose parents are going through some kind of conflict, you love them both. And I really liked hearing you say, you know, that both of our goal was to protect you guys, but in trying to do that, something got missed in communication. And so, like I said, there was a lot going on when you're in your final year of school. I think we were putting the house up, getting the house ready for sale, and I was driving around a lot for sport activities.
Terry was travelling.
He was travelling heaps. So there was a lot of factors that probably would have affected your year 12. And then what do you remember about the actual breakdown? Like, when did you learn about that, and like how do you remember that experience? Yeah,
so I guess it kind of I can't remember exactly when it was, like when the actual breakdown happened, but it was just I think it was like a whole, it was a few events that kind of transpired. Like, I was kind of, I think in my own way, just in a way to escape, I was just looking to go out and party, and partying was definitely an easy way to kind of avoid the feelings that I probably should have faced. But in my age, I was like, why the fuck should I like bother dealing with these emotions? Like, I just want to have fun and enjoy my life. I've spent so long studying for HSC, which is a massive thing for me personally. And so I guess that kind of behavior, I guess, definitely put a strain on our relationship. And I think because I wasn't honest with you about a lot of things, and then I felt like you weren't really being particularly honest about like the whole thing of just like how you felt towards Dad. And so so I guess it was probably like after I'd finished school, definitely it was I think just we'd had an argument, and then my dad, he was overseas traveling for on a holiday. I remember like Gabby was, or like I think Gabby, I can't remember if it was Gabby or you, was just like, you need to get the home. Like, this is not sweet. I think John and Kira are just like going at each other, which we were.
Do you remember how you felt then?
I just felt lost, really. I just didn't. I just felt really lost. Like, I'd never felt like that at all. So I think it was just like really difficult to kind of understand what to do. Like I just didn't know. And it was also challenging because, as I mentioned before, it was just kind of, it felt like I was having to pick sides, and I like never wanted to do that. And so when I didn't feel like I was forced to. I definitely made a conscious decision to decide who I was going to stay with, or like what was going to happen. And I think the easier side was with my dad. And so he came back from holiday, kind of just swept me up and was like, "You're getting put into uni." And I was like, "Okay, cool." And then from then it was literally like living with a flatmate. Like it was just essentially just like living with him in the Meriden apartment for a while, not really having like an actual home. It was all just a bit foggy, didn't really know what was happening. Not much transparency, definitely not from him. It was just like, he was essentially, his whole thing was just like, you and I are going to we're going to beat whatever this is. We're going to win this. And like, especially, obviously, it's always easy with perspective, but like, there's never sides of winning. We've all lost. Like, there's never a winner or a loser. It's like everyone's a loser. We've all lost something. And so, going through that was interesting.
Yeah, I think that's really insightful. I think for any family breakdown, especially when you've been particularly close, like we were, there are no winners. And that's the thing. All of us, you'd lose a little bit of yourself. And I think there's definitely growth out of that.
Oh,
and,
100%.
You know, there is a sense of loss. And you said of also feeling lost. And can you remember emotionally, like what you were feeling at that time? Was it confusing, or were you just like, yay, this is
I think it was a bit of both. I think it was like, initially I was like, oh my God, like it's that sense of freedom where I think a lot of teenagers want. Like ideally they want that limitless feeling of like, I can do whatever I want. But at the same time, in the back of your head, you're like, I want to be cuddled. I want to be hugged. I want to be loved. I want to know that I'm safe when I go out, and I still can come back and be like, yeah, like I'm supported in this. Like I'm not alone. Whereas for me emotionally, during that time I was living with my dad, it was definitely initially great. And then as the months went on and the year went on and the second year went on, whatever, it was just like, I was like, what am I doing? Like, I am so confused. And I think the confusion was even ramped up further because my dad was just so dishonest. It was just so difficult to understand like why this has happened. What was his perspective? He never gave me any insight into that. It was always just us against your mom or us against, like it was just never really transparent with him. It was just always like, there was always seemed to be like another layer of hidden surface that he just never wanted to touch.
Right. And there could be some protection in that.
To some extent, I think so, yeah.
And
maybe.
were you thinking at that time we would reconcile, that our family would reconcile? What did you...
I definitely didn't think, because from his intentions, he just wanted to be a single man. He just wanted to live the life that he had, like, obviously, like, wanted to live. But, like, it's just interesting seeing the comparison to then and, like, to where he is now, obviously. But in that same token, I think... did I think you guys were going to get back together? No. Did I think our families could get back together? 100%. Like I really, that, I think in my heart of hearts was the intention. And what I would have, like most families, like most kids they want their parents to be together. So seeing like the way that he was behaving and like the way that he was going about things, especially like with his relationships with his mates and, like if he ever like went on dates with other girls and stuff like that, it was just always just kind of like he just didn't have that kind of want that I wanted to see our family get back together, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think it kind of does. So when it dawned on you we weren't actually going to reconcile as a family, and you're going through your party mode and still trying to figure it out and manage this emotion and this big change, something I want to kind of move on to is, what was it like when you started seeing your dad's date?
It was definitely a shock. I think the whole shock of it was the way that he went about it was essentially that there was a woman who I knew had been at his house a few times. This is after we'd moved from the apartments. He'd got a house somewhere.
And you're still living together?
Yeah, we're still living together. And essentially, I knew that there was someone in the house that wasn't my mum. And already I'm thinking, who is this? Like, what's the go here? And I think what I wanted was honesty, and I didn't get that in the slightest, not even like a 1% of honesty. Like, I'm seeing someone, or like, what do you think about me seeing someone? Like, asking questions, like, how do I feel about this?
You just guessed? You just guessed that there was someone there?
Well, no, because I would come home late from work and I would go to the house, and there in like the bedroom, there's people talking, like there's like in his room, and I'd get home really late, like 6 a.m., 7 a.m. and there's this person like sneaking down the stairs, leaving out the front door. I was just like, oh, this is a bit weird. Like, never saw them. So yeah, it was just, that was bizarre to me. Like, that really kind of started to get my mind thinking a bit more about like, this is weird that he doesn't feel like he can be honest with me, you know? That's how it felt.
And I wonder if the flip side to that is that, especially if there was quietness and like you felt like sneaking around to protect you from potential relationship that a parent might have, like, you know, in hindsight, would you prefer to have had the conversation? Like, how would you have liked that to play out?
Like, I was just like, why is he hiding this from me? What does he think I'm going to say? Does he think I'm going to get angry? Does he think I'm going to be upset? And whether or not he even considered those emotions, it was just really shocking to me. Like, that really shocked me. I was just like, okay.
Shocked you that he didn't communicate? And did
correct.
it occur to you to maybe approach him and say, what's kind of going on here?
I think I was just scared. I just didn't know. And like, especially because the first time I've ever seen like my dad not with my mum, like it was just like that, like, ooh, this is a bit weird. Like, whatever. Like, I was just, as I said before, like, if he wants to be in a relationship with someone, like, I'm for it. But just the honesty and authenticity and integrity has to be there. And for me, that was just like, that made me feel like just so awful. Like, I felt like I was the burden in like between us. Like, it was just really difficult to navigate.
What do you mean by being the burden? Like, that you're the extra person in the house and you shouldn't have been there? Did you not feel welcome?
Yeah. So it was essentially exactly that. Like, I didn't feel like I was welcome. I didn't feel like my safe house, my safe home, where I'd felt in, like, when we were all a family, I felt like so completely safe. I mentioned it before. Like, I was like, this is fucking great. Like, I'm so safe in this place. I felt so comfortable.
It was your home.
Yeah, exactly.
It's my home.
Yeah, my home. And it went from, like, the flip side to that now was being in a space where I felt so unsafe, like, and not unsafe in terms of physical, or like, I just felt emotionally vulnerable. Like, I didn't know how I could even express that as well. Like, because if he's already trying to stop me from seeing this relationship, or if he's like preventing me from, or if he's preventing himself from being honest with me, like, I was like, God, this is like, oh, this is pretty bad. Like,
so don't step into that world of trying to communicate and understand. So did you end up meeting this person? How did that transpire? Did you end up talking to your dad about it?
Yes, I didn't talk to my dad about it. It wasn't meant to happen. Essentially what had happened was I had finished work early. I was let off early. I think it was like a Friday night. I got back at around like 8:30, 9 p.m. And I walk into my dad's house.
Where you're living?
Where I'm living. And there's this woman with her back towards me. And the look on my dad's face was just, shit, he's caught me. He's got me. Like, it wasn't like, oh, like, let me approach this as a dad. This was like, this is like one of your best mates cheating on you with like someone that he knows he shouldn't be seeing. It felt like that. So I like walk into the house. I was like, hi. And like, she gets up. She's just clearly uncomfortable. My dad hasn't explained much of what's going on between like anything. And so he just introduced us quickly. I was like, okay, and just went upstairs and went into my room and was like, that was weird. That was really weird.
And how did that evolve? Like what ended up happening? Did you end up having a conversation? Like
Yeah, no, I didn't end up having a conversation, which again, just like you feel like he's my dad, like he should be at least open to the idea of like telling me a little bit about like he's like, oh, so like I'm like kind of seeing this woman, like what are your thoughts? Like, are you comfortable? Like, what's it like for you? I know it's a bit weird. Like I can feel there's a bit of an awkwardness in the air, but like that was what I would have expected to be the bare minimum, to be completely honest with you. Like I see myself like in his position, and I just think I would have just done it so differently. Obviously it's easy to say with hindsight, but
and I think it's, you know, as the family breakdown and you know, you think your parents are going to be together forever, and your parents think that too. We're going to be together forever. That's why we got married.
Yeah.
And then when that doesn't happen, and that's why we're here talking about these issues. It's a whole new world to navigate. How do you do it? Yeah. What works, what doesn't work, and what works for one person might not work for another. But I think the things that we've experienced, and certainly in your experience, is it's probably more common than we think. Yeah. And I don't want to constantly be throwing your dad under the bus.
Of
like
course.
I've also been dating, and then, you know, you've had to cope with that. So you've experienced both of your parents now dating, and like, how is that for you?
Yeah, like obviously
And do you feel comfortable discussing it? Like
yeah, of course. As a kid, you want your parents to be together forever. That's the dream. But in reality, that's not what happens. And that's something that I've learned and continue to learn how to adjust to, and how I can use my own emotional skills to adjust to that and accept that if I want my parents to be happy, maybe they might not be in a relationship together, but if they want to be happy as themselves and who they are, then maybe that's through finding another partner.
Was there a moment that you can remember where, you know, you hurt the most? Or what hurt the most?
I mean, everything did. Losing our relationship, like with you and I, because we were so close, that definitely, I guess, took a part of me that I didn't think I would ever lose. And yeah, so I guess like that was definitely one of the hardest things. And I think also just not being the protector as a brother for my sister, I think that like was just like something that really, really hurt for like, and I could see the pain that I'd caused. Yeah,
there was a big relationship breakdown. And can you remember when you realized that? When you know, because you said there was partying and you're just kind of getting on with it and doing whatever you could because you're transitioning into an adult. You know, can you remember where you were or when it was that you were like, oh, wow, this is now a different life. It's not going to go back to the way it was.
Maybe not till like definitely I would say a year after like we'd stopped, like our whole family had just kind of imploded. I think probably a year from there, or like maybe a bit less than a year, but it was just like, it wasn't like a sudden realization. It was just like progressively, I was just like, I said it before, like I was just kept on asking myself, like, what am I doing? Like, this doesn't really feel right. Like, it didn't feel like who I was. Like, I loved partying. I loved going out and stuff. That's great. But it's also, as I was saying before, it's a great way to mask how you really feel. So yeah, I think it was just like developing and maturing as well at the same time in my own way.
And a couple of your friends' parents also broke up at around, within a couple of years of our family breakdown.
Correct.
And can you relate to what they're going through? Can they relate to what you've been through? Do you talk about it at all?
I guess one of my closest friends, his parents went through a divorce after he graduated, and he had shared with me that was kind of their plan was to wait until, or like one of the parents had decided they're going to wait till my friend graduated, so it's obviously less complicated for him.
I think that's really common.
Yeah, I think it is as well. I think even some of my sister's friends' parents are probably have done the same.
The end of high school HSC week is a big moving week, I think.
I think so. So, yeah, they, similar to me, it was just a very, like, their sense of just like, they just didn't know how to navigate it. It was just really, it was just a lot of uncertainties. And so it quickly became reality for them where they were quite lost as well. They were in the same boat, which I felt. But
the sense of loss seems to be something that keeps coming up. It's a big sense of loss. So there's some grief around that.
So they came to me. They asked. They were like, what did you do? How did you get through this? What was it like? Like, I'm feeling like shit right now. Like, the amount of times, like, I'd get calls, like, or we'd be on a night out, and obviously with the addition of drugs and alcohol, emotions are high. Like, people would come out and they'd be like, mate, like, I'm struggling. Like, I'm really struggling. And it's really difficult to see that when you're going through your own stuff. And I was still trying to progress through, like, build a relationship back with you, and for them to kind of feel comfortable opening up to me was nice, but like, I didn't have the answers, like, because there is none, I don't think. I think it's very individual. I think it's up to, and it's also about just being honest with your parents and just being like,
as honest as you can be.
Well,
I think that's a really nice summary. That is an individual experience, although it is, a human experience. So it's out there. And so in finishing up, we'll just talk about exactly what were the insights. Not that, and I hear what you're saying. You weren't the guru. You were processing your own stuff, but you're also able to support each other. So, what advice or insights would you like your friends and people in your position whose parents are going through divorce or, are progressing through that? What would you say to them?
I would say be honest with yourself and acknowledge that it's okay to feel lost and it's okay to feel unsafe.
And you mentioned anger a couple of times. You're angry.
Yeah, of course. You're angry at yourself, but you're also mostly angry at just how things have broken down and you feel a bit helpless. And in saying that, being honest with yourself and acknowledge, personally for me, seeking professional help from a mental health professional, massive help. Like, that really truly showed me that, you know what, it's okay to accept that you actually need someone's help. And a lot of the time that's not, but for me personally, it's not through being honest with your parents saying, you did this to me, or like, I did this to you. Like, what are we going to do now? It's like, talk to a professional, get the help, get the strategies and the techniques where you can really learn to survive by yourself, or learn to survive and sit with those emotions that you're feeling instead of putting them maybe towards partying, which I did personally. And like, or, people get really angry, or like just that like just overwhelming sense of like, I'm just angry at the world. It's like, if you can translate that into techniques and skills through a professional mental health practitioner, it's unbelievably, it gives you strength, it gives you power. And then I think the only last bit of advice I'd probably suggest is just, once you go through that support and you have that kind of fortitude, you have that kind of base level where you feel like, like, even when I'm feeling angry, anxious, stressed, I feel a bit lost or helpless. Communication with the people you love the most, because they have your back. Even now, that's the reality of it. People that love you the most have your back, and that should be, even though it's so difficult in those moments of really high stress and like those moments of helplessness. So it's obviously so much easier said than done. But when you have that kind of mental health support to kind of give you the little boost you might need to be like, I'm like feeling like this and I'm really upset. Like, I need you to help me. I need your support. And a lot of the time they'll react and say, yeah, I'm here for you. I will do what you need. I will help you. I will guide you. I will sit with you in those moments.
As well as having your own strategies.
Correct.
I think they're two super valuable insights, and getting some external help to your family and communicating, I think, and with the people that care about you especially. I think that's just a beautiful way to finish off. Thank you so much for sharing those insights.
Thank you.
And really diving deep into what we've been through. So thank you. Love you.
No worries. Thank you so much. I love you too.
On the next episode of Kismet.
And the box started rattling And we all just went, oh, don't worry about it. She goes, no, I don't have anything like that.
Don't miss an episode. Hit subscribe where you're getting this. Follow our socials and ask any questions on my new website where we're building for like-minded people wanting to reconnect.